Like I do feel that we rip the heart out of a lot of boys and
Mm,
teenage boys, and I think it speak what you're talking about how difficult it was for you, who I would consider way more open minded on this issue, when faced with that quote that we steal these things from boys and say that they're not worthy of this care, love, and affection when they become men, and you struggled with it. And so I think
yeah.
there is a lot of people, and in this, even in this concept of feminism, of which I would say I am an ally and supporter, but there is something in some part of the zeitgeist of that movement now that I think, when you paint this idea of the patriarchy being all bad, like it's an organization. Like if you talk about a monarchy, you can speak to the royal family. If you talk about a monarchy in Spain, there's still a king,
Mm,
or was, I don't know, but like they had a king at some point. And but when you think of it, it's when it's like something, but there's no face to that thing. I think you start putting the face of every man you know on that idea of patriarchy. And so you think every man is perpetrating this thing. And I think even the more maybe astute part of the feminist movement would know that men are also burned and hurt by this system. But also, when you hear something that men are being aggrieved, I think it becomes too hard to accept, because you've been told that all these men are the oppressors for so long, and that they have the power and that they have all the agency, and then they're controlling what we're able to do. And there's truth to that, but it definitely is not all men. And so when you hear that boys are being robbed of their hearts, which obviously we shouldn't be surprised how so many men turn out angry, alone, um, a very small amount, but too many perpetrating violence. It's hard to understand that they need empathy as well. And that's the only way, I think, through this moment, that I think men also need to have their own emotional needs based revolution, to be able to
mm,
have their feelings, to have their friends, to have this love,
mm,
that I think even many women, I think, are perpetrating this idea that men don't have these needs because they were taught
mm,
that they don't, and that they should be partnered with a man who is a man who doesn't have needs, which, like, and it's, I don't think it's really anyone's fault. I don't think there's any blame, and I struggle
yeah.
with this as well. I think it's just, this is the world that we happen to be in for so many different factors right now, and I think the only way through is for to all of us understand that we have needs, and that,
Yeah.
like you said, we, in this body as a human being, emotions are just part of it. And if
Yes.
we
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
need learn to accept them and work with them, well, then they're going to kind of run the ship on their own, and that never works out well.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, and I think that's something that's been useful for me in my research. That I really encourage anybody listening to think about, whatever your gender identity is when you're looking at men. I think there were periods of my life when, let's say, the telescope that I was looking at men through had a lens of it of the worst men that I've known, and that's how I would look at men, through the telescopic lens of the worst men that I knew. And when
Wow.
I started to turn that telescope round the other way and started putting on at the front the lens of the best men that I've known, it totally changed my perspective. When I started to anchor myself in the thought, in the reflection of who would I be without the best men that have happened to me, Michael, I don't know that I would be here, honestly, because
Profound.
it makes me it makes me emotional, because I think that there's so much love and care and protection that so many of us, our lives have been imbued with, that have come from the men in our life. Which isn't to say that as well there's not been hurt and pain also in, some of the terrible things inflicted on us, but it's like we can render invisible all of that beauty that's been given to us, um, through the men in our lives, and kind of it, I think it can be so dangerous. So for me, that's been really a powerful reflection to kind of to do.
Yeah, I think we could probably do that on both sides of the aisles. Like, I'm sure if you have
Yeah,
the gendered aisle, if you will, I'm sure a lot of these incels and people that have removed themselves from the dating pool or from um, collaborating with women have probably equally been hurt by many women in their lives that they find very unsafe or violent or abusive and all of these things. And it's hard when and for women, I'm sure, like when many of your experiences, most of the most profound um, traumatic experience of your life has come at the hand of
yes,
an abusive man or a neglectful man or an avoidant man or all of these things. And then you're asked to have sympathy for men. And you're like, but all the ones I know suck. It
yeah,
would be very difficult. And I'm sure, men have the same experience with the more dangerous women that they've come
yeah,
across. And I don't know where to go from there because it is hard to tell someone when 90% of your experience with this one specific type of person has been dangerous to you, has been a threat to you, but have faith. There's better ones out there. I don't expect them to believe me because like
mm,
learned experience is where we have to go by. And so I think maybe that's one part of social media that could be helpful, that there are accounts out there now that put like positive masculinity out into the world, that you can see how many different types of men and women are out there, and some are open and caring and supportive and vulnerable and strong and all of these things. And so I think hopefully it can give us more faith that our negative experiences are not the sum of humanity, which it's a bit of a leap to get there, but but I think if we can see some of it, it allows us to make that jump a little bit.